Welcome everybody out there listening to Clean Radio on our new flagship station, Talk Radio 790 KABC, and my co-host with the most.
How you doing, Judah?
I'm great.
You could introduce me.
Andrew Spanswick, owner, proprietor, operator of KLEAN Treatment Center, and all-around good dude.
Good dude. Wow.
One of my
you get that from Brooklyn?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
One of my BFFs. And I really want to tell people before we start, you're listening to a show about addiction and recovery. But I want to say a little bit about how the show got started about 3 years ago. Andrew and I.
It's been 3 years. Wow.
Andrew and I were just having a conversation and in a car. And we thought
probably
about
eating.
You're eating your Carvel shakes.
Yeah.
And we
which
thought
I gave up.
which we thought about the idea that we I was influenced when I was younger by shows like Behind the Music, but I was always left asking when I was watching Behind the Music, what happened after? You'd see these like horrific stories of these bands, and then you'd be like, well, what happened to them now? Because we always thought the now was the cool part of the story. And that's what we like to hear on the show. We don't only like to hear stories about addiction, but we also like to hear the positive stories after people have gotten sober.
Yeah, or even the struggles.
Yeah.
But, what people are doing, how their lives... There's so many myths about people that once they get sober, they become sort of dead and they lose any creative vitality.
What a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For most people, it's the exact opposite. And so it's good to hear stories about that.
I mean, I've jumped out of a plane sober, so never did that
I don't
drinking.
know. I think maybe that's something people should do, drinking.
Yeah, and then get sober. But also, let's welcome our co-hostesses with the mostesses tonight. That's Erica Abfab Spiegelman.
Hi, everybody.
That Abfab thing's sticking, huh?
Yes,
why
it
not?
is. It's not going away. I'm so excited to be here. This is so wonderful.
Yeah, this is pretty cool on KABC. And by the way, if you're just out there and you're just tuned in listening, give us a call at 888-375-3613. That's 888-375-3613. We have an amazing guest who I'll introduce in a couple seconds. But something I wanted to really talk about quickly is I'm a sports fan. I've been reading, obviously, a lot of sports. It's the big story every year with MLB baseball constantly is this steroid thing. And it's weird because it's not different players. It's a constant stream of the same 5 or 6 guys that keep on getting...
Yeah, the guys that can hit.
They get caught. They get caught. The other ones are taking them, too.
The other one, right.
But it's like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, and I started thinking this, and we had this discussion earlier today, Andrew, and you disagreed with me a little bit, but one of the things I was thinking about is, at what point are these guys addicted to steroids? First of all, can you be addicted to steroids?
I think that people psychologically can be addicted, but I think in the case of professional athletes, it's more that they're addicted to fame and performance and the role of being a professional athlete, and they fear that without using those drugs, they won't be able to perform at that level. And there's also a lot of money involved, let's face it. I mean, the difference between hitting 4 or 5 extra hits, in a...
Psychologically, but also the act of, too. I've heard a lot of people that, it becomes the routine, just like we were talking about.
Also psychologically, just the idea that even if it works or not, I mean, probably there's a placebo effect.
Exactly.
I mean, if you shoot yourself up with anything, even if it's like saline solution.
Right, you think you'll perform better.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, because it becomes psychological, it's mental.
Yeah.
And the reason I think this is really interesting is because so many people are out there listening. We really don't understand what addiction is.
Well, the part that's strange is that people would do it with such huge consequences of losing. And that's similar to addiction as well, where people, they'll shoot up heroin to feel better, but they're also risking their life every time they do it. Same thing with pills even. We see now people are overdosing on, as we know, most people that overdose do it on more than one medication or one type of illegal drug. So it's alcohol and pills or cocaine and alcohol or some other combination.
Right, which it's an amazing word you just used is consequence. And people out there, obviously growing up...
You didn't have to look it up? Did you just Google it?
Yes, I Googled consequence. And
we love that word.
And as a kid...
What did it say?
As a kid, it had said, Andrew is... We're trying to be sweet, Andrew, on our new radio station.
Right.
That's what consequence said. But consequences...
Or you'll have a consequence.
I'll have consequences, right.
And Patrick, our video guy, will get very mad at you.
He will, okay.
So when we were kids
pay?
growing up, our parents would say... that they would look at the guy in the street and say that's the alcoholic, the guy drinking. They would say the Bowery bum. That was always the image in your head.
That was image in my head for a while.
Right. So But, a bunch of years ago when Bill Clinton, got into trouble with his, let's say, what I like to call it sex addiction.
I think he drinks quite a bit, too.
And he probably drinks quite a bit, and all that jazz. But I don't know that for sure. But I'll say it. Why not? If Bill Clinton is listening and I said something wrong, call in.
Yes.
And,
sensational.
Call in at 888-375.
Tell us we're wrong.
3613. That's 888-375-3613. But we're talking about consequences and whether he's a sex addict. That obviously, people, even if he did it twice and the act and the consequences that happen, that is a problem.
Well, I think human beings traditionally, and we're going to get more into this, but have always had different sexual private lives than they do publicly. Certainly, politicians are notorious for that. Wow. And but there's also issues that from all accounts are his marriage isn't all that great. So it's more of a business partnership. Mm-hmm. So people's private arrangements and what they choose to do, it's hard to say. But what is interesting is the extreme risks that he would take.
Right.
I mean, he could have been a little more discriminate.
Well, just with even with the steroid use and what we're talking about, it's the lies though that everyone is telling. They look at Lance Armstrong. I mean, he kept this lie. He even created a bigger lie. He created such trouble for himself, which he didn't have to do really. And I think that goes along with the shame that we don't talk about with steroid use.
Well, and just lying. I mean,
lying in general.
It's just amazing to me how lying is such. It's probably the number one sort of thing we see with addicts is that they have this continual pattern of lying,
and it builds on itself, and it's this endless cycle. It's this endless
where people are
cycle.
lying, they don't even know what they're lying anymore.
Well, they don't. Yeah, because it becomes habitual. It's just a habit.
Just get used to lying, right?
And
it's easier to lie than tell the truth.
It's true, by the way.
It is.
And I think a lot of that does stem from that when you're a kid, your parents all the time say to you, "Be honest," and you're like, "Okay." And the one time you're honest, they punish you.
Right.
So you think, I might as well continue lying.
Oh, no, now we're getting into Judith's childhood trauma.
This is totally my childhood trauma and my adult trauma with my parents.
Yeah.
Okay? I've learned to say I didn't leave the light on. Okay? 30 years later, I'm still getting bothered about that light on in the bathroom. Telling I didn't leave it on, Ma. But let's, if you just tuned in, you're listening, I know, if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio on our new flagship station.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
KBC, but also give us a call, 888-375-3613. That's 888-375-3613 with any calls you have about addiction, whether
questions
you're in crisis.
People have about any problems they might be having, or families that have problems with people in their family that are having an issue.
The call is absolutely free. But we have an amazing guest tonight.
We do.
Yes, we do. And she is a sex therapist. So much more than that. And she's written a best-selling book called The Man on My Couch. Her name is Dr. Brandy Engler. Dr. Brandy Engler is a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in relationships and sexuality. Did I say that correctly?
Was it intended to be a double entendre on the title?
Yes, it is. The Man on My Couch has got to be a double entendre.
Right?
Let's hope so.
And for the reason, let me just say this right now, I am not, nor I have ever been, on your couch. With that,
none of us in this room have been on your couch yet.
That's right.
Yet.
That we know of.
Right.
Yet's
She's
the key
private.
word.
You
There's
never
always
know.
the future.
Let's welcome to KLEAN Radio, Dr. Brandy Engler.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here. So one of the things let's start talking about right away is that what is you specialize in sex addiction. One of your things. What is sex addiction?
Sex addiction is actually, it's really important to distinguish that from sort of womanizing, which it often gets mistaken for.
Right.
And one of the ways to sort of tell the difference between sex addiction and womanizing is guys who are, or women who are, people who are womanizers are just sort of promiscuous. It's egocentric, so they like it, and they often feel really proud of themselves and happy about what they're doing. Whereas with sex addiction, there's a lot of shame involved, so they're not happy with what they're doing. They're not happy with themselves. And often you can see it in the consequences because there's a lack of control. Often, they're destroying their bank account. The character in my book had spent $250,000 in 1 year on prostitutes.
Wow.
He would spend 3 and 4 days at a time. He would have to call into work. And then another issue with that is
that's like one night for Charlie Sheen, by the way.
Yeah, and this guy wasn't actually wealthy. This was nearly all of his income. Mm-hmm. And so you'll see that. You'll see people who lose, who become ill, who lose work, things like that, who destroy their entire lives over this. And it's
like any other addiction.
I had to say as a therapist, I mean, I've been working for 22 years in this field, and I didn't really believe in sex addiction for a long time, and then. I had a friend who actually died of AIDS a couple years ago. And I couldn't believe just how hard it was to work with him because he had a sex addiction. And he would disappear like for 20, 30 minutes, like out of nowhere, come back with it, you know, like having had a shower. You're like, where the hell did you go? You know, it's like, and he would constantly, like, Yahoo Messenger would keep beeping every 5 minutes. And you know, he was sending out photos of himself to people, and just constant. He was so consumed by it, he couldn't concentrate on work.
Yes, there are people who spend hours on this. There are people who spend hours and hours on. It could be anything from online dating to sort of talking to people on Craigslist. And some people have talked to me about masturbating for 4 or 5 hours. The worst I heard was 13 hours in one day.
You see that a lot associated with meth use?
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Yes, not always. But if there is a drug that is associated with it, it's typically meth.
Right.
How many of your clients have alcohol issues too, or drugs, or, you know, not that they have to go together, but...
It's frequent, but sometimes it's just the sex addiction,
right.
Particularly in my private practice. But typically when I see a drug attached to it, it's usually crystal meth.
Right.
Yeah.
Now with technology, though, I mean, they have all these apps where you could actually find sex for free on in your neighborhood, on the corner. I mean, it just must be so rampant these days because with online dating, I mean, there's so much now.
It seems like the internet certainly is like increased this, right? I mean, I don't think like the 977 calls or whatever they were back when I was young.
Right.
Not that I ever called one, but
there's so many.
It's a major difference though between those 977
or is that what they were?
Yeah.
But then now, I mean,
976 by the way.
Well, see, Judah would know. There.
I actually, that was one of my jobs.
Did you ever call one of them?
Yes, I did.
Really? What did they do?
Accident,
like,
of course, Ma.
Did people
the reason it's very different was because it wasn't every kid growing up did that. You know, they would see these numbers and they would call, but after 10 minutes of being on hold or somebody talking really slowly for like $10 a minute, you hung up.
Right.
And
his cost-benefit analysis stopped him from doing it.
You were like, my God, it's $100.
Well, that's actually good reality testing. I guess that's one of the problems with sex addiction is people lose that ability to test reality and see what's appropriate behavior and not appropriate and what's harming them and what's not. Is that a big part of your practice, teaching people how to recognize what's harmful behavior to them and what's not, and then how do you replace that if that's the case?
There is, because there's a lot of sort of shades in between what I just described, you know, with someone masturbating 13 hours a day or spending $250,000 in prostitutes. Those are the more extreme cases, but there are a lot of people sort of like this, you know, situation with Bill Clinton you're describing where you know, they're doing it, you know, maybe not quite as much. Maybe it's once a week or once a month, and it's causing some degree of harm in their life. But then there's the question: is this addiction? What's going on here?
So there's various degrees.
I mean, if you're willing to risk, you know, the presidency of the United States,
or the president,
right. I can't think of that constitutes addiction in, you know, for every which way I've ever. You know, it's like the person. I mean,
well, it's more behavior is questionable, and who wants to trust the president of the United States?
I actually was proud. I was like, you know, if the president can't get it on, who can? You know.
And thank you, Andrew Spencer. By the way, if you just tuned in,
I was relieved. I was like, oh, there's hope.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. Give us a call at 888-375-3613. That's 888-375-3613. We're in the studio tonight with best-selling author Dr. Brandy Engler, author of the book The Men on My Couch, and we're discussing a different form of addiction. We usually talk about alcoholism and drug addiction and, you know, after that. But how many people have you seen that get sober that get sex addiction?
Or does how do we treat that?
Transfer, we're talking about transferring addictions, poly-addiction, and moving from one addiction to the next.
It's different because you can't necessarily have abstinence, although people who treat sex addiction, you typically push for that for about 90 days.
Okay.
So you can spend a little bit of time just focusing in on what are some of the psychological needs that are driving the sexual, like, compulsivity behind it. And often you find that there's quite a bit of psychological stuff going on there. There's some sort of like sublimation taking place, and particularly
for those out there that don't know what sublimation means.
Okay, so there's some other need that they're expressing sexually. So if you think with men who get the message that it's not okay to be emotional, but it is okay to be sexual.
Right.
And so they might have particular emotional needs that they need to have met by somebody in their life, like a woman in their life, that they're not okay with somehow talking about or asking for, then they're expressing everything sexually. And people who do that end up putting too much emphasis on sex. It becomes overly important and then eventually becomes sort of compulsive.
Do you know about the Bonobo Monkeys?
Yes,
of Madagascar, right?
Is this what were you going to say?
I was just wondering if you knew about them.
Yes.
Right? They express everything through sexual action, and they're like, the one sex addict that I knew would use this example all the time as an excuse. So there's this group of monkeys called Bonobo Monkeys. It's a species of monkey or breed of monkey or whatever. And they everything that they do, whether they're angry, happy, whatever, they use sex to express it. And it's this rampant sex monkey colony in Madagascar.
And I want to welcome everybody out there listening to Clean Radio, that I get to hear of this from Andrew all the time.
But it's typical of how an addict, somebody that's doing inappropriate behavior that's destroying their life, will come up with like the most bizarre excuse as to why their behavior is okay. And he's like, well, if the Bonobo Monkeys in Madagascar can have sex constantly, then why shouldn't I?
Good excuse, right?
Right?
Yeah.
And with that, let's go to Michael in L.A. Welcome to Clean Radio, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, hi. Well, you're dealing with a phenomenon today that is reinforced and agitated over and over again by the Internet.
Right.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
so many talk show hosts, including Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, etc., do not want the Internet regulated. However, this does not fall under freedom of speech, because this subjects a person to a form of spiritual slavery. And they are not in touch with the intellect, and they have essentially given up their free will. And what they're doing is they're on a path to possession. See, the first step is obsession, and oppression, and then obsession. And then obsession, it moves into possession when they do it enough. And that is why we have so many disturbed young people who will go out, carry guns, kill people, etc.
You know, I think you bring up an important point. What you're talking about largely, too, though, is a public health view of a situation where you decide whether or not some people, the general population, should be exposed to something that causes a problem, and whether government should intervene and say, hey, you know what, this thing, and whether it be a toxin like alcohol or cocaine or whatever, should be regulated in some point, or shouldn't be allowed and be illegal in the country, in an effort to stop people from being exposed to it, and therefore getting the negative consequences of being exposed to it, versus what we've been talking about here is the fact that people are exposed to it, and then what do we do about treating people that develop a problem? Right. But it's a very good point, and I think that it's one that Americans have had a really difficult time dealing with, especially conservative versus liberal, where we have this dynamic in America where we have a very sort of highly religious, puritanical almost belief system on the spiritual side. And then on the political side, we have this libertarian, very, let's go out there and everybody should be able to do anything they want. And those two, the rugged individualists of America, the cowboy. And how do you fit those two ideal sort of archetypes of American people into a society that works effectively together? And
but you can't.
You can't. And so
because you see, you have, in other words, our Constitution was framed and built on Christian values. And our forefathers understood that if we did not have a Christian society, we could not have a republic. Now, they stipulated to that fact. So what we're doing right now is we're in a process of destroying the republic, and that's why we are electing people who are doing just that.
Michael, I'm just going to break in for a second. We're not a political show, and we don't necessarily disagree with you on this stuff, but we are about treating
and helping.
Whatever came first, the chicken or the egg.
God came first.
That's the thing, right? And Michael, but the problem is, it's already out there. once, I hate to use the word exposed since we're talking about sex
also,
addiction.
and even if, God came first, fine, and let's say that, this is a problem. I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't think Jesus would have wanted people to give up on treating people for issues that, have to do with sin.
Yeah.
I mean, if sexual addiction is a form of sin, that doesn't mean that sinners don't deserve to be treated
and if it is,
have
call
some
me
sort
a
of help.
sinner.
Yeah, it's just a word. It's
Yeah.
just a word. People are struggling, and people consume, many different things. People when they're numb or they want to numb out, they consume food, they consume drugs, alcohol.
It's been
sex.
going on since the beginning
thing.
of time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even religion to some extent has in some ways replaced people's, there's people that are obsessed and completely absorbed with religion. So it's a difficult thing to talk about. And I would just like to point out, even though we're not a political show, that, we are a country of religious tolerance.
Yeah.
And we were founded on the idea that people could practice any religion they wanted. So
and freedom and have
freedom of religion.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the only way in the end of the day people are going to get help. If you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. And by the way, thank you, Michael, for the call. Give us a call at 888-375-3613. That's 888-375-3613. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Brandy Engler, author of the book, The Men on My Couch. But it's an interesting thing because how many of your clients, the people you treat on your couch, have these issues with religion and sex addiction? I'm sure that's a huge...
Well, I actually was thinking about not so much with religion and sex addiction going together, but sort of what this gentleman called in about the internet. Yeah. I actually have quite a few young men who are coming into my practice saying that I was sort of like grew up sexually looking at pornography on the internet, and I don't like what it's done to my sexuality, and I just want to talk to somebody about it because I actually feel kind of enslaved by it. Even when a lot of young men are coming in saying, "Okay, I've stopped looking at it, and I don't want to look at it anymore because it was causing sexual dysfunction for me."
Oh, wow.
But it's still causing me problems. So now what do I do? So I think this is very interesting that so many people are choosing to come in and talk about.
I definitely want to get into that more. We've got to go out for a break here. Let's let Judah give out the number. We really encourage more people to call.
And before we go out, I just want to read a quick message I got today from Patrick, a caller that we've had constantly on the show.
Yeah, how is he?
And I asked him how he was doing, and he wrote, "Could be a lot better, maintaining life's necessities like my job, bills, and girlfriend. But other than that, my life seems to be pretty lonesome and mundane, spending anything extra on drugs and alcohol, and sometimes have to borrow money to pay one bill at a time. Not sure what I'm going to do." So I told Patrick if he gives us a call tonight, Andrew will gladly put him in one of the rehabs that we have. And Patrick, I beg of you to call, and I beg everybody out there that's driving right now or listening to us anywhere, that if you're struggling, you don't have to anymore. And I think that's what we're saying here, is that whether it's sex addiction, food addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction.
Right. Yeah, call us up. We can find ways to help you out,
Give us a call at 888-375-3613. The discussion continues at KLEANradio.com.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? KLEAN Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to KLEAN Treatment Center, that's KLEAN with a K, KLEANTreatmentCenter.com.
You are on the air. Welcome back to KLEAN Radio.
I like Oasis.
We're in a new studio, so I'm amazed how well it's going so far. And I'd like to welcome back all the people in the studio. Owner, proprietor, just an awesome individual, Andrew Spanswick.
How much did I pay you to say that?
Nothing, actually.
Not enough, right?
Not enough, yeah. And also our co-hostess with the most. This is Erica Fab Spiegelman.
Hi, guys.
And I got to say this to people out there. Erica is one of the people that cares in this industry. It's sometimes I think it gets really confusing because so many times we meet therapists that have been in the business for 40 or 50 years and they're cranky.
40 or 50.
Yeah, or 60. They're like the
try 10.
Or they're right. And
maybe that's why I'm still happy.
Erica and Andrew, both of you guys are actually people that still care. And I want to get quickly, how do you still care? Like, what makes you continue to want to do?
I don't know about Erica, but for myself, it was like, it was something that I was drawn to early on. When I was in college, I was trying to decide sort of I wanted to be in some sort of social services, and I didn't really know what exactly. I was always good at sort of recognizing people's problems and then helping them with it.
Yeah.
And mental illness I saw as something that was like the most vilified and people were the most scared of, and that what most people just seem to have no understanding of. So I was drawn to clinical mental health, and then I got into substance abuse later as well.
And let me welcome back, I'll get to you in a second, Erica. We have in the studio tonight an amazing doctor. Her name is Dr. Brandy Engler, and the reason I say you're amazing is because you were telling me before the show about you used to treat people in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and Brownsville, and you were in the emergency med mobile. This is before the areas got gentrified.
Yes.
So that's why I say you're amazing. Because gentrification, if you're like a doctor in those areas now,
I'm a doctor with street cred.
Yeah, you're a doctor with street cred.
Exactly.
And we have a caller on the line. Her name is Debbie. She wants to know, how do you know you're addicted to sex? Welcome to Clean Radio, Debbie.
Hey, Debbie.
Hi.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
I wondered how a person knows that it's an actual addiction rather than maybe just a habit or something you just get excitement out of.
That's a great question.
Yeah, and I think that people need to know about this, and we call this about the continuum of different addictions. And, I like to talk about, especially with other addictions, and we'll let our guests in a second speak about sex addiction, but with alcohol and drugs in particular, we see use, abuse, and then addiction. And people can actually get treated or educated all the way along that spectrum. People can be educated when they're young about how to use alcohol appropriately. People that don't or that can't control it might get into a place where they're then actually abusing it, and they might start beginning to have problems, but they're not actually physically addicted to it. And then you get into alcoholism, where people are actually fully addicted physically and psychologically to alcohol. So what sex addiction, is there a continuum like that where people have different stages and levels of?
Yes, but the continuum looks a little bit different. It sort of breaks down various behaviors. But I think that the most simple way of looking at it is, have you attempted to stop and you feel like you weren't able to, like you've lost a little bit of control? There's a lot of negative consequences to what's happening. I think that's sort of...
Do you think someone that just cheats on their spouse, what is that? Is that sex addiction?
What about someone constantly cheats or just has a problem?
Do you have to constantly cheat, or is like cheating once like evidence of someone that can't control their behavior?
I don't think cheating once is, but the biggest risk factors for if someone's going to cheat or not is usually narcissism, low self-esteem, and impulsivity combined, and you see a lot of that in addiction as well. So when you have the three of those factors, that's it's more than likely to do it more than once.
My girlfriend is listening to the show.
No, we're working on it, Judah.
By the way, Debbie, what brings up this question? I would love to know.
Yeah. Is it personal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Is there something to share with us? Or?
Debbie, I just want to share with you a little bit because we're new to the station. I'm sober a little over 14 years. Andrew's sober. Erica's sober. And we get it. And I mean that.
We've all had different issues.
Yeah, trust me. Yeah. I've been a Bowery bum. So
we've all come out on the other side. Right. And the fact of the matter is there's hope for anybody. And there's ways to be treated, whether that's with a therapist or a treatment center.
The question is, what are you going to do about it, Debbie?
Right. And it's hard to not feel ashamed.
Of course.
Of course.
Like it's a big secret.
Yeah.
Well, just to even be calling a station is amazing. There's a study done on when people finally reach out for help, and the average length of time between an onset of a major problem and people actually reaching out to help is 7 years.
Wow.
So the fact that you're even calling this show is an amazing step.
It's absolutely amazing. Debbie, Brandy, Dr. Brandy, do you have your own practice?
I do have a private practice in Los Feliz.
And you want to give out the number so somebody like Debbie could call?
Sure. It's 310-388-7983.
Can you say that one more time?
Sure. It's 310-388-7983. And I welcome any calls. I do free 30-minute phone consults.
That's great.
So,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
I welcome
great.
you to call me if you have more questions like this and you want to share something personal. I'd be happy to.
Do you have a website?
And Debbie, also, we're going to put up all the info after the show about
maybe she could give
about Brandy. What is your website?
It's brandyengler.vpweb.com.
Of course, it will be on ours,
and it'll also be at cleanradio.com.
It's clean with a K.
That's clean with a K.
Yeah.
And Debbie, let me tell you something, and I say this again, you're not alone. And it's so cool that you're calling Because, it's like the caller we had before, that would have scared me a little bit,
Right.
And somebody like you calling up and having the honesty after you hear somebody be very puritanical, because that's what you're going to be facing.
Yeah.
And it would have terrified me. I don't know how you had the guts to call, so I really commend you.
But it must mean that you want to learn, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Debbie, it's going to get better. So, and I want to thank you for the call. But she raises a very interesting point. And you raised an interesting point. What do I call you, Brandy?
Brandy, you can call me Brandy.
Okay, Brandy. I love Brandy. Here's the thing you said before: alcohol, drugs, you could stop it. You don't need it to survive. The hardest thing to addictions, I always say, are food and sex, because you need them to live.
Well, it's part of the human experience.
Yeah. Well,
you don't need sex to live.
You don't need it.
I would, it's
part of the human experience.
Yeah.
It's
unless you're 80, yes. But go. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with not full abstinence?
So for about 90 days, you hit the reset button. And so that's the time to take a look at the psychological issues that are getting expressed sexually, so they can learn how to get those needs met in a different way.
Right.
And a lot of what we find, and particularly with sex addicts, is 78% of them come from what we call disengaged families. They're people who are walking around feeling chronically alienated. They struggle with loneliness, and they struggle with feeling like they can't connect emotionally with other people unless they're doing it sexually. Right. So they have to relearn a bunch of social skills.
And that's the one thing I find really interesting. There is no intimacy in a lot of these relationships, right?
Exactly.
It's just pure.
Sex.
Yeah, it's just a pure physical act, and the intimacy actually scares people that have sex addiction.
Well, yes. So, but quite a few of them come in with like some kind of strange, like they're trying to act out some kind of intimacy with like prostitutes, for example. So they want the prostitutes to be nurturing and loving.
It's like a fantasy of intimacy.
And then they get frustrated and angry with the prostitutes for not being nurturing and loving, and then pick another one, and then another one. Sometimes people go to 10 or 15 in a night, getting frustrated with the prostitutes being too cold. I see this a lot. They want,
and then some of them want their prostitutes cold.
Well, you hear that all the time. Jeez, I don't want to hear about that one. You hear a lot of stuff people talking about. That threw me off. That was a little weird. Anyway,
no, I'm saying some people like dead. I watch a lot of
just
CSI.
need to dig a bigger hole.
Okay, I watch a lot of CSI.
Dead fish.
Okay,
I just can't even believe. Where did we find you?
Yes, go on.
I don't want to say it.
Right. Hopefully you've recovered from that one.
Yes. I read, just like you.
Read,
I
okay.
just read different things.
Yeah, I guess so.
So anyways, go on.
Are vampires cold? I don't know.
Yes.
No, but they're looking for some kind of warmth, some kind of connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah. Because they have this dilemma of both needing people and being scared of people at the same time.
Right.
And so they have these sort of strange attempts at connection that are both sort of like aloof and searching for some kind of nurturing. And it's different for each individual person, like how they figure that out.
And too much intimacy is not what they're really not looking for someone to see into them, which is into me see. Right. So it's probably.
Wow, that was very profound.
Yeah.
And if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's clean with a K. It might sound like something else right now, but we are a show about addiction and recovery. And, it's one of those things we do have to talk about, which is sex addiction, which it's one of those things that people don't always...
Well, it's one of the newer ones, you know, like I think that alcoholism is sort of, for lack of a better term, come out of the closet, and people have accepted alcoholism as a real problem, and that it's not completely shameful to admit that you're an alcoholic.
Well, nowadays it's more acceptable.
Yeah, and drug addiction has obviously become rampant in America, and... the drugs have become stronger. Marijuana has become a much stronger
40% at least.
Yeah, and now we have meth now, which is just absolutely devastating. Yeah, we have this huge pandemic of prescription drug abuse. The process addictions, and for those out there that don't know the difference, there's substance abuse addictions, and then there's process addictions. So some substance abuse addiction is obviously something you take in and you're addicted to it, psychologically or physically. Mm-hmm. And then there's process addictions, which are like gambling, sexual addiction, things where you engage in some sort of behavior that you find psychologically addicting.
So please give us a call with any questions you have at 888-375-3613. That's 888-375-3613. I encourage you to call like Debbie called. That took so much courage. I also I'm praying that Patrick calls tonight. Patrick's one of our fans, and he's struggling. And Patrick, please give us a call. That's all we want, to give you a free bed in rehab. The one thing you have to show us is give us a call, and I promise you'll be on a plane tomorrow going to rehab.
And I think Patrick knows we care. I mean, we've both kept in touch with him for many months now, and I always put energy out there that everybody that's supported us is doing well, and we, it's nice to hear from you. So we would love to hear.
Also,
from
the
you.
concept, like Judah likes to talk about, of never giving up. It's a constant struggle, and it's never too late as long as you don't die.
My father always said that when I was drinking, and I always, people always said to me, what happened? How did that? And I always say, my father used to say, as long as his son was alive, there was a chance. And what bothers me, and Andrew and I, this is why we get along so well on certain things, but one of the things, we don't believe in tough love. That doesn't mean we don't believe in consequences, but we don't believe in kicking a kid out on the street because they could die.
Yeah.
Well, there's always, there's always a lesson to be learned, and whether, you even if you get sober for a little bit and you relapse, there's still like a seed that's planted. You still learn something. So there's never any shame in getting back up on your feet and trying it again and again. And, most likely if you continue to do that, you will see some hope. Yeah.
And, it's interesting that you raised that, because a friend of mine was talking to me last night, and he has about a year sober, and he was telling me about his friend that had relapsed. And, he said, he called me and he said, let's hang out, but I'm drinking. And he goes to me, and I said to him, that's okay. Just don't hang out in a bar with him. It's okay to take his calls. It's okay to go have coffee with him. Be a friend. And I think sometimes in life that gets lost.
Yeah, and I think people that are drinking a lot don't know how to socialize without drinking.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a tough one as well.
Do you tell your clients, and we're in the studio tonight with author of the best-selling book, The Men on My Couch, author Brandy Engler, Dr. Brandy Engler, do you tell them to go to support groups?
I do tell them to go to support groups. There's SA and SAA.
Yeah, and SLA.
Yes. And also, I think that people can get a lot out of things like smart recovery as well.
We tell people a little bit.
But that's good for people to know.
What is SLA? SLA is Sex and Love Addicts. SA is Sex Addicts Anonymous. What is smart recovery?
Smart recovery is more of a skill-based program where they're taking research on addiction and sort of teaching the people who come to those groups on how to use whatever they've learned from either cognitive behavioral therapy or neuroscience or anything in the field of addictionology, and what to do in the micro moments of when you have a craving or an impulse, sort of what to do with it.
It's tools. It's kind of like teaching tools for sobriety.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, let's go to David in Santa Monica. Welcome to Clean Radio, David.
Hey, David.
Juta. Congratulations, you guys, on your new station and new time.
Thank you very much, David.
It's your good friend, David M.
Yes, welcome to Clean Radio, David M. He's so excited because, yes, I won't say why he's so excited, but he's a good guy. He's David Martell. What can you bring to the table tonight, David?
Well, I just want to say, you're talking about two of my favorite subjects, food and sex. So,
and one you can get and one you can't.
You're not alone in that, right?
And Judah, not anonymous. Judah and I, we went on a double date. It was a first day. We went to a ball game, and I've been trying for a very long time to figure out how to get a balance of a very pretty girl and chocolate cake at the same time. It's just trying to make it work. But Judah was very happy with Bill Clinton. I want to say, because of the Monica Lewinsky situation, Judah told me we finally got a Jew in the White House.
And this is why we haven't been to a baseball game since, David. So actually,
I love you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, David.
It's so important. It's important to get the stigma away. And the people calling in for the first time, congratulations to those folks.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, David.
Nice.
Thanks for calling and supporting.
Talk to you soon, David.
That's so nice to have a supporter.
I think what he just said is really interesting, is because we talk about this stuff. If people were to just tune in and the way we talk about addiction, right? We talk about it in a fun way.
We're laughing.
We're laughing
about something that's a serious illness.
It's an extremely serious illness. And the thing we want people out there that are listening, there is a certain once you've crossed over, and even if as you are struggling, you have to laugh at these things. I'm not saying you have to, and you tell people that because it's really hard dealing with sex addiction. There's such a stigma. Like Andrew was saying, people in AA could walk around the streets going, "I'm in AA," Nobody walks around the streets going,
But they're in despair also, just like any other addiction. You know, I mean, for those of us that have you know, suffered or have tried to beat an addiction, there's a level of despair that I think we don't talk about enough, and that's really the spiritual despair. That's the internal despair. That even if you have consequences externally, it's really what you're going through every day, the obsession in your head. You wake up thinking about something, you go to bed thinking about something, and I think that is something that we don't talk about as much. You know,
part of what I want to do with this book is help people to promote understanding and compassion for men, rather than this sort of old, you know, negative generalization, like men are pigs, that's just how they are, you know. And that's part of what fuels this debate. Does sex addiction even exist? Is this a new pop psychology label to justify, you know, bad behavior in men? You know, I want to help get rid of that stigmatization so that men can reach out and ask for help when they need it.
And it's women too.
Yeah,
I mean,
women as well.
You know, more and more I see more and more women having issues with.
Absolutely.
And I mean, do you think the you know, and I hate, you know, do you think the internet has almost gone too quickly? You know, you used to have to try a little harder. It really hurt addiction in the past. You know, it made you, it struggled.
Not in a big city.
Right.
I mean, you know, but I think the fact that the internet's everywhere.
Well, you get junk mail. You get junk mail sent to you. Like, you want a hot date tonight? Do you want, you know, this, it's all that, I mean, I get it. And I get
like 4 Russian brides an hour.
Right?
I don't know.
When I was a kid, to buy the first porno I was a kid, it took me an hour and a half to have enough guts to walk into that bodega.
And have to find the store.
To finally buy, you know, and then an old lady would always walk in, and I'd have to start it like sports again. You know, and then
inching your way.
Later, I finally picked out the 3-pack for $5.99. Everybody out there knows what I'm talking about.
This is why Judah became an alcoholic, not a sex addict.
It's exactly right.
His anxiety disorder got in the way.
The old lady.
It was way too much work, and but you know, you didn't have that instant access.
Right.
I couldn't just go online and type in a website and boom. I had to watch Miss USA and pray there was a slip, you know, and it never happened. But do you think the advancement of technology has caused so much more of this sexual addiction?
I think it's more of people's relationship with pornography than it is the pornography itself that's causing addiction. Although we do need to think about like the way that we use the internet and the impact it has on our brains.
Can you explain that a little bit more? What do you mean?
You know, I don't know all of you know the ways that the internet does impact our brain, but just the way that we're taking in the information, sort of rapid pace. You know how that's impacting the brain, and then of course like this sort of very easy and quick gratification that sexual gratification that people get when they look at porn, because you're being shown increasingly more novel and bizarre sort of imagery,
right?
And so that's known. Any human body will sexually respond to novel and also sort of strange like imagery. And so when they keep like increasing that, like the body habituates, and then you need a new level of it. If you think about it, like an erection and orgasm, they're just conditioned reflexes in the body. It's very simple.
That's what I've been trying to tell
people. And it's mostly mental,
years.
right? I mean, it's mostly mental. I mean, sex is what, 80% mental?
Well, there's a very physical experience happening, but then there's an emotional part weaved into the pornography that you see, where it's appealing to very base level emotions like anger and fear. And so what they're doing is they're throwing that in, that sort of like emotional part to it too, and that also is stimulating people and then conditioning those emotions to an orgasm.
Right. I mean, one of the things that I like that you said early on was that a lot of your clients say that they don't know how to have a normal, intimate relationship anymore. And they actually miss the idea of that, or the concept of that they don't know how to relate to a human being in a way that's okay and safe and simple.
Right. So a lot of young men are coming in saying that they're having erection problems because it's hard to get stimulated by just like a normal interaction, like a normal connected, like man-woman like interaction.
And is that because they desensitize themselves so much?
Yes, yes, because of the physically, like they've conditioned the response to something more.
And I hate to break up this quick conversation, but our prayers have come through, and Patrick is called.
Patrick.
Welcome back as always, my friend.
Hello.
Patrick.
Hey, Patrick, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
What?
Good.
How you doing, Patrick?
Yeah, you know, not so good.
Well, the question is, what are we going to do about that, Patrick?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to do anything. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Patrick, because you called in, Andrew
And he was listening tonight.
And he was listening tonight.
Again.
Andrew has said, you know, he will give you a bed whenever you're ready.
That's awesome.
So, no, the awesome thing is when you say Yes.
Say you're going to do it.
Yeah. Patrick, you called me, but you were talking before, and you said, you're just maintaining. How miserable is that existence right now?
It's there's no fond memories growing out of it. That's for sure.
And you've
By the
been
way,
struggling
Patrick,
for a
just
while.
Patrick, to the people that just tuned in on Clean Radio, Patrick has been calling in for months.
Yeah.
He's dealt with addictions, and he just can't manage to put.
He's gotten you got sober off of pot for a while, right?
He was sober for a year or two, right, Patrick?
Yeah, just about 2 years.
And then on and off for a couple of weeks while he was calling in.
He was doing a lot better. But
he
it
actually
seems
had
like
63 days at one point.
Right. Which is great.
Yeah,
but,
which is, what are we going to do about getting you? What's stopping you from, just calling up and saying, I want to go to rehab tomorrow? What's stopping you right now?
I think life. I think the fear of starting over with nobody, no family, nothing, no backup, no. If I go to rehab right now, I lose my apartment. I get my license back next week after 2 years of not having it. I lose my job.
Okay, Patrick, really you still will get your license back.
Right. Really,
and actually, you can't be fired. You can't be fired from your job if you go in for treatment.
Which is very important that you say that to people out there listening. If you decide that you need to go into treatment for drugs or alcohol or anything, you cannot lose your job.
But Patrick, is it more that you don't want to say goodbye to the substances?
Yes.
Let's be honest.
It's part of that, but it's really
because other people struggle with that.
Starting over.
Yeah.
Patrick, sorry, Andrew, but
I just wanted to say that one of the best things to do is actually start over.
Yeah.
The path that you're taking is just going down a dead end street.
Right.
And if you actually get sober and involve yourself in a life of recovery, you'll meet a lot of people that are sober, and you'll have new experiences. And the things that you think that you're missing out on, or the things that you think that are important right now, you'll find out probably aren't. And you'll get a whole new set of priorities and a whole new life.
And a whole new set of coping skills where you won't ever need to use the substances again to cope.
Yeah, because right now where Patrick is for alcoholics and addicts is hell. He's essentially in purgatory. And I hate to speak for you, Patrick, but I've been there. It's almost like you can't get high and you can't not, you're is it working?
And most people don't know why they're doing it at this point. I don't want to speak for you, Patrick, but I had someone calling me over the weekend. I was on the phone most of the weekend with somebody who's struggling with alcoholism. And, he was just like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm risking everything in my life and I can't stop drinking. And, finally got him to a doctor where he was able to get some medication to be able to detox. And, it's tough. Yeah. It's really tough. And then, 3 days later, he's sober and he's like, I can't believe that I'm here again. And that I, didn't see how far down the hole I'd gone.
Right. And that's what, Patrick, that's what we're trying to say to you is it's okay to start over. One of my biggest pet peeves in the 12 steps, which I go to quite often, is that when people say they're back, and I hate that terminology. You're new, and it's okay to be new. It's okay to raise your hand and say, I need help.
Well, people are scared of change, and you know what? It used to be working for you the way that you were living, and now it's not. So you have to embrace the fact that change will bring you a new way of living, and have some faith and hope that there are people out there that will help you in doing that. And
Patrick,
take the plunge.
I'm begging you to call us up tonight. I want you to call up our 800 number and
888
say
number.
888 number. And it'd be funny if he calls it up and he says,
there's nobody there.
It's a 900 number.
It's a sex line.
But Patrick, please give us a call tonight, okay? Please, and say I want to get help.
And certainly, just go to our website. You can get it there. It's www.cleancenter.com. Clean with a K.
And Patrick's, he's on our Facebook page. Patrick, I beg of you. Yeah. Please give us a call tonight.
And the direct number for those out there is 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. And you can call and talk to a treatment advisor. We have people 24 hours, 7 days a week that you can talk to. If you just want to talk about your problem, it's great. They'll absolutely, if we can't get you help directly, we have treatment facilities and counselors we work out with.
All over America.
Not just America, and Britain as well. We have a lot of listeners
and Canada.
in Britain. Canada. So, absolutely. Give a call and,
Patrick, let's talk.
Some help.
Patrick, are you going to call later?
I'll do my best.
Okay, it's so funny. I've never had a close so hard, but Patrick, I beg of you. So we will talk to you later, okay, Patrick?
Patrick, take care.
All right.
Sorry about that, Patrick. If you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. I'd like to thank again Dr. Brandy Engler, author of this amazing book, The Men on My Couch.
Brittany, what kind of Freudian slip was that? That was.
I don't know any Britneys. Where do people pick up your amazing book?
They can pick it up at their local bookstore. You can also get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's online.
That's so great. Congratulations.
And local. I love how she says your local bookstore. Yeah. Like, there are no
if
more
there is
one.
I know.
I live near Book Soup. There's a plug for Book Soup.
Okay, of course.
There you go.
Yeah, there's one there at Book Soup.
It's actually an amazing bookstore in Los Angeles, but
there's not enough bookstores. Unfortunately.
You have another book coming out soon.
I will have another book coming out soon that's about women.
So it's The Women on My Couch?
It's going to be called Libido.
Hey, that's a great name. Great. I'll be picking that up.
Judah wants an advanced copy.
Yeah, I definitely do.
He'll come read it on your couch.
I would actually. That would be a whole new business. People paying to read the book on your couch. Or people paying to have you read the book. Do you have an audio version of this book?
There will be one coming out. It's not out yet. I haven't taped it.
Can I tape the Libido one?
Yeah.
I would love to be the voice.
Your voice for an hour.
Yeah, that would be great. I just really want to thank you. And again, we're talking about some serious stuff. We're talking about sex addiction. We're talking about alcohol addiction. And the reason we're laughing is because we've seen so many people get hope and get cured and save their lives, save marriages.
Change their lives.
Right,
change their lives.
That they never thought. And it's got to be hard sometimes for you. It's such a serious thing, but I guess the silver lining is watching the people that get help.
Yes, it's so rewarding. I find the work with sex addicts to be very gratifying, and I've seen a lot of marriages stay together and grow stronger through this. It's not something that has to destroy your marriage or destroy your life.
That's great for people to know.
Yes.
Because it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to thank everybody that helps put this show together. Rand DeWitt, he's a pretty cool guy. I want to thank Patrick, our video guy. I want to thank the board op, whose name I don't know, Steve. Thank you, Steve. And I want to thank Cal, and I want to thank everybody out there that posts on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Go to our Facebook page. It's KLEAN Radio / it's Facebook/KLEAN Radio.
.com/KLEAN Radio.
Go to KLEANRadio.com for all our past shows.
Yeah, and this is the other thing people need to know. We film this, so you can watch the live stream on the internet, or you can watch Wednesdays. This show is recorded, and you can watch it on the internet. So if you heard something you like, you want to listen to it again or send it to a friend, just send them to KLEANRadio.com. Mm-hmm. It's KLEAN with a K. And then also, we have a lot of great past episodes from our previous stations. So
and buy this book. It's called The Men on My Couch. It's written by Dr. Brandy Engler. I have a problem with that name. An alcoholic that can't say brandy. And it's an amazing book. I beg of everybody out there, look at our video feed. You can see what Brandy actually looks like. And Erica, too. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Andrew
Thank you for
Spanzerk,
having me.
of course. And the show is over, but world-class addiction assistance is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at KLEANRadio.com. That's KLEAN with a K. If you're just getting to a no phone now and want immediate professional addiction assistance, call 888-601-6040. This number will connect you directly to KLEAN Treatment Center. That's 888-601-6040. Don't worry about money. This is about getting you help you need right now. That's 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. The conversation continues at KLEANRadio.com.
Good job, Judah. Yeah. And thanks for our listeners following us to the new station.
Thank you.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? KLEAN Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to KLEAN Treatment Center, that's KLEAN with a K, KLEANTreatmentCenter.com.